insider pointed to the technology or described their experiences, their accounts could be attributed to a fictional genre. So, for example, with Star Trek, they were revealing a teleportation technology right around the time that it, in fact, emerged in the defense technical community in the United States, but they were depicting a form of teleportation that was literally the opposite of the teleportation technology that had been developed. But I don't have any information suggesting that the brilliant Gene Roddenberry was anything more than a great creative mind from our own time.
And your last one, Andy?
Is there any way I can get involved?
Oh, now that's a good question, too. How does he get involved?
Well, my Mars research project is at www.projectmars.net. I would urge you to become a supporter and participant in Mars. And my truth campaign, Project Pegasus, is at www.projectpegasus.net. And so I would urge you to visit those websites and join my campaign. Also, I'm up on Facebook. We have two groups, one Project Pegasus and the other entitled The Discovery of Life on Mars on Facebook, and you can keep abreast of my truth campaign on those two sites on Facebook.
Okay, next up, we go to John in Sun City, California. You're up with us. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, other than maybe giving me some lotto numbers in the future, I have a question regarding needing Rumsfeld and Richardson to confirm what you were saying. Wouldn't it be simpler, since the chances of them doing so is very nil? Couldn't you write something down, since you know of these other things like Clinton and Bush's being made president? Your knowledge of some of the things in the future, in the near future, write it down, put it in a vault somewhere, like with George, and then unlock it in 6 months or a year and say that these 6 or 8 things that you said would happen 6 months earlier came true. Wouldn't that be proof enough that what you're saying is confirmation?
Well, this idea comes up, and I'm sort of asked to prove my claims by being a soothsayer. Let me just say this. My project experiences on Project Pegasus occurred 40 years ago when I was age 7 to 11. I'm now 48. I've spent the last 10 years investigating what happened to me and writing down as much as I can remember. Things like being able to correlate the one lunch in 1971 when both President Bushes were present and apparently had recently been briefed on their presidencies are just one episode in an entire lifetime that I've been able to go back and identify as having happened on the project as a result of doing literally 10 years' worth of memory work. So I think that's a very logical question that you ask, but it's not a requirement that I'm going to impose on myself, because my account is really a memoir that I've recovered from the recesses of my own life experience 4 decades ago. And in fact, if I had not gone about the process of recovering the memories, that is to say, focusing on them for 10 years, I'm not sure I would have been able to correlate much of the information. I would have simply forgotten it and moved on with my career as a lawyer and as a writer. So I don't want to position myself as a soothsayer, because essentially I've been able to identify the things that were predicted about the future because they were referenced in discussions 40 years ago, and I've done the memory work to recover them. But I'm not prepared, for example, to say who the next president is going to be.
Can you say, Andy, whether we get hit by an asteroid or anything like that?
Well, there was catastrophic information that was revealed in one of the time probes. Let me describe it. I don't remember anything involving being struck by an object from space. But there was a very, very basically dangerous chronovisor probe that was undertaken on November 5th of 1971 at the ITT Defense Communications Facility in Nutley, New Jersey, which then and now is literally physically adjacent to the Defense Logistics Agency branch that's there in Nutley, New Jersey. And for that probe to the future, there was such a high-intensity light generated by the crystal array in the chronovisor that we actually had to wear a crystal helmet and a protective spacesuit-like suit, a garb, that was sputter-coated with titanium to literally physically protect us from the energy field that we were placed in. During that probe, we went forward for about a half hour to remotely view the status of the U.S. Supreme Court building as it would appear on the Mall in Washington, D.C. in the year 2013. And I do believe that year was selected because of the concern regarding the Mayan prophecy and what may befall us, on December 21st of 2012.
2012.
And what I saw during that probe and reported to the lieutenant commander from the Office of Naval Intelligence who debriefed me when my clothing was removed on the stage, my boots were poured out, not, I believe, from water, but actually my own perspiration. It was so hot in that suit. I was taken down the hall, and the lieutenant commander from ONI asked me, okay, Andy, tell me about the target. The target is what we had been trained at some exercises at Curtis Wright to actually focus on and look quickly to the left and right when the forward momentum of this particular probe stopped. And essentially what this was that event as it was forming prior to the collapse of the wave function in that area of the quantum hologram where that future event on that timeline was stored but had not yet occurred from the perspective of our position in the time-space continuum. And what I saw and reported to the Office of Naval Intelligence is that the U.S. Supreme Court building was under about 100 feet of brackish water. In fact, there was algae growing on the stately columns in the front of that building. But I hasten to add that we can't use that information to be apprehensive about the idea that there will be a catastrophe in 2012 involving, let's say, substantial coastal flooding that would place Washington, D.C. underwater, because all of the chronovisor probes were to adjacent timelines in the multiverse. In fact, I think something significant about my investigation that I can offer to the discussion about time travel, both in science and parascience, is that Project Pegasus proved the existence of the multiverse, the notion that the quantum hologram consists of a multiple set of adjacent timelines that are essentially similar, but that differ slightly and are sort of densely packed, internested sets of timelines. Because when I was being sent multiple times to the assassination of President Lincoln, I had been trained to go through the lobby and up the stairs and behind his box there at Ford's Theater. Every time I was sent there, something different would happen. And then later in 1971, I was present at the meeting in the evening at the Sandia Auditorium where time travel to the past involving chronovision using children was shut down because, in the words of the administrator who was announcing the termination of that part of the program, every time we send the same child or a different child to the same event, it changes a little bit. So when I described this probe to 2013, in which clearly there had been a mass disaster, in which presumably the entire eastern seaboard had been flooded with a substantial amount of water, God knows from what, global warming, maybe the collapse of La Palma in the Canary Islands into the Atlantic, perhaps a meteor strike in one of the world's oceans. I'm saying that information had been detected on one timeline, but that doesn't mean that we're in the timeline where that event will occur.
You're very good, Andy. I got to tell you, it's a very compelling story. We'll be back in a moment with final phone calls on Coast to Coast AM. Next hour, Craig Hewlett joins us as we talk about some major issues of the day, and we'll take your phone calls as well. By the way, in the not-too-distant future, sooner than later, we will be having the Coast to Coast Instapoll on the coasttocoastam.com website. Immediate polling questions to you about specific issues of the show or questions of the day. For example, do you believe the swine flu was concocted in a laboratory? Yes or no? Through the Coast to Coast Instapoll, you'll be able to go there and say yes or no, and we'll get instant results, and we'll share them with you on the show. We'll even share them with guests who might be appropriate for that specific topic. So look for that in a not too distant future on the coasttocoastam.com website. And welcome back to Coast with Andrew Basiago, the attorney, the author as well. Let's take some more of your calls. You ready for the final calls, Andy?
Yes, let's fire away.
Peter in Queens, New York. Go ahead, Peter.
Yes, I'd like to ask a two-front question, one on Christ and the other one on DVD copies. On Christ, there have been various variations, like certain famous Catholic saints and mystics had different variations on how he really looked like. So did he look like the Holy Shroud of Turan? What age was he? Did he have nails in his wrist or in his hands? The other question is the great composers like Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, and